From the headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Emike Omolu. Welcome. The leaders of Spain and Bolivia are putting on a united front as they meet in the Bolivian city of Santa Cruz. This is the first time a Spanish Prime Minister has visited Bolivia in 20 years. It's part of Pedro Sanchez's Latin American tour. He and President Evo Morales have agreed to work together on economic issues. They've also discussed jointly financing a new train that will connect Bolivia, Peru and Brazil.
I want to tell the delegation of Europe businessmen that here an investment is fully guaranteed. We have overcome a few years ago the constitutional process and some difficulties, but now it is fully consolidated. I encourage the President once more regarding the new economic growth of Bolivia, accompanied by all international organizations. With our companies, we have partnerships and good friendships. They are our partners. The Spanish companies have been well received here. I have said in private, but I would like to do it public. I am deeply moved by the high distinction that you, President, has given me. I think it is a faithful reflection that exists in the alliance between Bolivia and Spain. I can guarantee publicly to the Bolivian public opinion that the government of Spain will do everything possible for progress, for the cohesion and for prosperity of a country that we feel so close as it is, Bolivia. Thank you very much, President. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, economists are hailing Bolivia as an example to other developing nations on how to boost their economies. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean pinpoints specific steps that Bolivia has taken. More details in this report.
The Minister of the Economy, Mario Guillén, highlighted a recent CEPAL release which instructs developing nations in how to bolster internal economic growth.
This is what we have been doing the last 12 years, and just now the CEPAL and other countries are realizing that formula for growth. CEPAL's advice is not to focus on exportations but public investment, infrastructure, salary increase and local demand.
Additionally, the economic report reviewed the growth projections for the region, putting Bolivia in second place this year.
CEPAL has established a review of a forecast made in December. They predicted that we were going to grow 4%, but now it is at 4.3%. With this new figure, we are the second highest growing economy in South America behind Paraguay.
In the last 3 years, Bolivia has found itself leading economic growth in the region and maintains a good position above the average forecast for the continent. That will be 1.2% this year, according to CEPAL.
Ecuador is criticizing Colombia's decision to leave the Union of South American Nations. Foreign Minister José Valencia says the bloc is key to regional integration. He insists on a united front on the migrant issue. He wants a regional response to the mass migration of Venezuelans and is organizing a meeting with other UNASUR members.
What we hope to achieve is a specific framework to identify problems in human mobility, not just the identification process, but public health issues and vulnerable people in our countries.
Meanwhile, Ecuador's farmers, also known as campesinos, are accusing the government of not doing enough for its own citizens. A group heckled President Lenin Moreno during a speech. The disturbance dominated the event, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Campesinos' social security. Members of the crowd stood up in anger, demanding better services and living conditions.
Manabi wants water.
We want a better coffee price.
We want loans.
We want cheaper seats.
Everything that you want can come to pass. At the same time, you have to produce more and better. So cheaper products don't come from the bordering countries.
It's exactly 2 years since Colombia's left-wing rebels signed a peace agreement to end decades of fighting with the government. The Alternative Revolutionary Force of the Commons Party, or FARC, is marking the anniversary. Its leader, Rodrigo Londoño, has been tweeting his views. He says despite the difficulties ahead, peace is the right answer. Londoño, also known as Timochenko, shared a part of the speech that he gave back in 2016.
Our commitments are to end the armed conflict, to transition into a fully legal political party, reintegrate into society on agreed conditions, and to do everything in our power to ensure that the painful conflict ends today, so the victims can have justice and reparations, and we will do it.
FARC, meanwhile, is urging President Ivan Duque to fully implement the peace agreement. It says it will use its seats in Congress to build peace and a constructive opposition.
Nuestra apuesta es por la consolidación.
We wait for peace, a total and integrated peace and national reconciliation in the framework of a new way of policies that includes all people. Duque's program is not linked to the needs of most Colombians. On the contrary, it's aimed to ignore fundamental aspects of the peace agreements, such as political participation, violating the commitments made by the Colombian state.
We'll take a short break now. Join us in a few minutes.
Queremos verdad, reparación integral, pero sobre todo justicia, pero justicia social.
How many ways there are to tell a story? The different perspectives of our nations are on Telesur documentaries. Sundays, only on Telesur.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. More than 2,000 employees are about to be laid off at Trinidad and Tobago's state oil company Petrotrin. The government announced it is shutting down the oil refinery because it is no longer profitable. The company does not produce enough oil to finance refinery operations. Petrotrin owes $3 billion and would require $25 billion just to stay open.
You cannot have a commercial enterprise operate at a loss indefinitely. No, definitely not. Don't even think of it being sold, because there's no plan to sell it, and don't think of it being sold. Let me tell you, the reason that it is being shut down is because it is not economic to run it.
Puerto Rico's governor has officially raised the death toll of Hurricane Maria. The latest investigation, carried out by George Washington University, revealed the new numbers. Researchers said they used a different methodology than previous investigations. Their findings show the number of deaths is nearly 50 times higher than the previous official estimate of 64.
I am announcing as well that we are, even though it is an estimate, we are officially changing we are actually putting an official number to the death toll. We will take the 2,975 number as the official estimate for the excess deaths as a product of malaria.
A joint anti-narcotics operation involving Peruvian and Bolivian police has led to 26 arrests. More than 700 pounds of cocaine was also seized in the month-long drugs bust.
We have decommissioned 3,300 kilograms of cocaine alkaloid over 25 days in 92 operations developed by this unit with support units from the Puno region.
A total of 26 individuals apprehended. In the operation, 20 Bolivians, 3 Peruvians, 2 Ecuadorians, and 1 Brazilian.
The children of Peru's former president Alberto Fujimori are all being investigated for money laundering. More on this in this next report.
Kenji Fujimori, the suspended congressman and son of the former president, spent over 4 hours being questioned inside this police station.
I'm sorry, but I won't talk about politics.
Siblings Kenji, Iro, and Sachi Fujimori are all under investigation for money laundering in connection with their company Limasa. In 2013, police found 100 kilograms of drugs inside one of the company's warehouses.
This case is based on the sudden growth of Lima S.A. company between 2009 and 2013. Within 3 years, the company's capital grew from 40,000 soles to 2.5 million soles.
Keiko Fujimori and her husband Margarito are also facing the courts under similar charges.
It is not an accident that Mrs. Fujimori is linked to people who are being investigated by the DIA. It is also no accident that she has strong connection with people who have since been convicted for drug trafficking.
The Fujimoris have been haunted by drug trafficking allegations since the 90s. Notorious drug lords Vaticano and Sandra Avila, also known as the Queen of the South, have all alleged that they paid large sums to the Fujimori government to carry out their illicit activities. Another well-known case is that of the Martinez sisters and Keiko Fujimori.
The First Lady requested a pardon for the Martinez sisters, daughters of Eudosio Martinez, a well-known drug trafficker. Alberto Fujimori pardoned them immediately. These 2 ladies had been in prison for drug trafficking. Years later, in gratitude for the pardon, they financed the presidential campaign of Keiko Fujimori.
For political analysts and investigators, it is no coincidence that the Fujimoris' political campaigns are lavish and overblown, since their funding has never been fully disclosed.
Mexico's homicide rate skyrocketed during the 6-year term of President Enrique Peña Nieto. Now the victims' families are demanding change under the new president.
It's more than a year later, and Ruben Sarabia is still trying to come to terms with his daughter's murder. He painfully recalls the way her life was taken away, and still today, there is no justice.
She was murdered by a group of thugs on July 29, 2017, in the central offices of the Popular Union of Street Vendors in Puebla City.
He is demanding justice for the thousands of murdered and missing persons whose families are still searching for answers.
We are thousands of mothers fueled by pain, outrage, injustice and cruelty. We are fighting and doing everything humanly possible to find our sons.
According to statistics from the Public Security National System, the first quarter of 2018 alone recorded close to 16,000 murders. At the same time, 37,000 missing person cases are yet to be solved.
It is necessary to reconfigure the institutions in charge of public safety and to gradually withdraw armed forces.
The reality that the country faces was acknowledged by the President Enrique Peña Nieto, whose term ends in December with very little success in reducing violence.
It is very difficult, and it will be really complex to reverse the crime rate and ensure peace for the Mexican people.
Meanwhile, the National Pacification and Reconciliation Forums are still being held in various Mexican territories, led by President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
And Mexico's President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador says creating jobs could prevent mass migration. He made the comments while meeting Guatemala's President Jimmy Morales. López Obrador also asked South and Central American nations to work together to cut down economic migration.
We need to stop seeing this migration phenomenon as an excuse for militarizing our borders. We must deal with it from its roots. Above all, we need to offer better work and living conditions for our people, so they don't feel forced to migrate, so that migration is optional and not compulsory.
Because in reality, we have so many things in common, and we share so much culture, that I think if we strengthen equality and complement our differences, we'll be able to solve many problems together and be able to overcome more challenges beyond those which we currently have.
The investigative committee for the pre-trial of Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales has been formed. It will now decide whether to strip him from his immunity under charges of illicit campaign financing.
Members of the investigative committee were chosen by a lottery in the lower house of Congress. They will now carry out an investigation to decide whether the president should be punished by putting him on trial. He faces charges of illegal financing during the 2015 presidential campaign.
Our job is of great importance now and must be done transparently. We are talking about the president of the nation, so we must be careful, but also very thorough.
Five representatives make up the investigative committee. 4 of them belong to parties that are involved in the scandal. However, these representatives insist they'll be objective.
Be sure that this committee will work to provide a verdict fully within the law.
The committee will meet with the Public Ministry and the International Commission Against Impunity to put forward their case in favour of removing the president's immunity. They will also have to meet with the president himself so he can have his say against the charges. The investigative committee will have the final say on whether the case goes forward or not.
I think if we were to vote today, we won't have the 105 votes needed to move forward with the trial. Nonetheless, the panorama changes on a daily basis, so we count on the committee to come to a decision and either support the trial or let the president walk away.
This is the second time a pre-trial has been brought to Congress against President Jimmy Morales for not declaring money that was given to his campaign.
El Salvador's Ministry of Health is trying to raise awareness about the mosquito responsible for dengue fever. The health campaign aims to lower the risk of diseases such as dengue, Zika and chikungunya. It hopes to reduce the insect's breeding sites, which is vital to prevention.
We quickly realized that the fight against dengue should not be waged in hospitals. It should be waged in the community, against the Aedes aegypti mosquito. There is no other way more effective than to control epidemics. We started this type of campaign, and we also asked the National Civil Protection to join us because we saw no other possibility to get ahead of this fight.
We'll take a short break now. Back soon.
actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Good to have you back. A look at some more global stories. Canada is still refusing to sign on to the NAFTA agreement. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he will only sign a deal that is good for Canada. He mentioned auto trade as a sticking point. Plus, he is rejecting the US's demands to open up access to the Canadian dairy market. The market has had limited foreign imports since the 1970s. On Monday, the US and Mexico agreed to overhaul the 25-year-old Free Trade Pact. The US president suggested he could cut Ottawa out.
We are currently in the process of renegotiating NAFTA with our neighbors to the south. You may not know it, and we are determined to reach a fair deal for all parties involved. A modern agreement to reflect of our values and the height of our ambitions, which will benefit not only local businesses, but also middle-class workers.
Let me just reiterate that it was a constructive conversation, and Ambassador Lighthizer agreed that if I were asked, he was fine with me saying that he feels it was a constructive conversation as well. We are set, we believe, for an important and constructive week. We agreed we would go into detail on specific issues beginning tomorrow morning. And I should also say that we will be meeting with Mexico later today.
UN human rights experts say war crimes may have been committed by all parties in the conflict in Yemen.
Members of the government of Yemen and of the coalition, including Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, may have held or conducted attacks in violation of the principles of distinction and proportionality and/or precaution that could constitute war crimes.
Despite the severity of the situation, we continue to witness a total disregard of the suffering of the people of Yemen. This crisis has reached its peak with no apparent sight of light at the end of the tunnel. It is indeed a forgotten crisis.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has met the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in Cape Town. It is her first official visit to the African continent. May says Britain intends to improve trade ties with Africa by using its international aid budget. As Britain's exit from the European Union approaches, she's seeking to boost British trade and investment further afield.
Both our countries have identified key sectors for investment to boost economic growth and, in our case, to continue to create jobs and to reduce poverty in South Africa. We are pleased with the support the UK is willing to give to support our investment drive.
We want to build on the strong foundation of our economic relationship to ensure the prosperity and security of our people. The UK is one of South Africa's largest trading partners, with our trade worth over £9 billion last year. And we've agreed that as the UK prepares to leave the EU, we must think about how to grow that trade in the future.
LGBT activists have protested in Paris against comments made by the Pope. Crowds carried "I'm not normal" banners. This comes after the Pope suggested homosexual children should get psychiatric help. The pontiff made the comments to journalists as he was returning to Rome from Ireland on Monday. The Vatican has tried to backtrack on those remarks.
We organized this demonstration to denounce the Pope's homophobic and transphobic remarks made to the press 2 days ago.
I'm not Catholic. I'm gay. I'm 50 years old. I have been living with HIV since '86. I want to say that the Catholic Church has concerned me for years. For years I have been hearing them say stupid things about condoms, abstinence and fidelity.
Meanwhile, in Hamburg, Germany, thousands of anti-fascist protesters have mobilized after recent right-wing riots in Chemnitz. The riots were sparked by the killing of a 35-year-old man in a reported dispute on Sunday morning. 2 male suspects, both migrants, have since been arrested. An anti-racism demonstration also took place in Cologne as a response to growing anti-immigrant rhetoric. Planned pension reforms in Russia have been softened after a public outcry. President Vladimir Putin has now modified his controversial pension reform following protests and a decline in opinion polls. In a TV address, he said the retirement age for women would rise by 5 years to 60 instead of 63, but the 5-year increase to 65 for men will remain. However, unions have warned that Russians may not live long enough to claim a pension. The end of the Notting Hill Carnival in London has been marred by a stabbing. An unidentified man was rushed to hospital on Monday evening. His injuries are reported as non-life-threatening. Police reveal that some 400 people were arrested, an increase from last year, and around 30 officers were injured in the line of duty. An estimated 1 million people attended this year's Bank Holiday Carnival, the largest in Europe.
Our heartfelt condolences from Euphoria.
We've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English, and join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Molu, and thank you for watching.